So today we'll take a look at our song from a functional standpoint. We'll also explore key terminology commonly used by jazz musicians, establishing a shared language that'll help you understand and communicate the concepts. So the version of Stella that you learned is in the key of B flat major. So every chord in this progression is playing a specific harmonic role. For example, the B flat major 7 is our tonic, and we call it a 1 major 7. The letter name of every chord is called the root of the chord. The root of F7 is the note F, and the root of E minor 7 flat 5 is E. And we can always look at these roots from the perspective of the song's current key. So a B flat major 7 is a 1 major 7 chord because B flat is the first degree in the key of B flat major. F7 is the 5/7 because F is a perfect fifth above B flat. And we can say E minor 7 flat 5 is a sharp 4 7 flat 5 chord because E is an augmented fourth above B flat. So once you've established the current key in a song, you can always assign a Roman numeral to any chord in a progression. There's a more sophisticated way of assigning Roman numerals, which involves secondary functions, but that's not important right now. What is important is that you understand how we can always think of a chord's root as an interval above the current tonic. So what would an A flat 7 chord be? Well, A flat is a flat 7 above B flat. So A flat 7 would be a flat 7/7 in the key of B flat. But don't worry, we're not going to look at every single chord and assign a Roman numeral to it. I just need you to see how you can always think like this in a chord progression. For now, let's just concentrate on the first chord in the progression, E minor 7 flat 5. So, what's the root? E. What's the chord type? Well, it's a minor 7 flat 5 chord. What's the interval between our tonic B flat and E? It's a sharp 4. And yes, we could see it as a flat 5. By the way, in jazz, we usually don't talk about augmented or diminished intervals. We talk about sharp or flat intervals. So instead of saying augmented fourth, we say sharp 4. In the case of a sharp 4 or a flat 5, we can also say it's a tritone. The concept of tritone is so ubiquitous in jazz that knowing all of your tritones is kind of a must. So your first assignment for this lesson is going to be playing all of the tritones like this. Please memorize this interval. You should know all of your tritones really well. So I was saying before that you could basically see E minor 7 flat 5 as a minor 7 flat 5 chord that's a tritone away from our current key, B flat. This means that whichever key you want to play Stella in, you would always have to start on a minor 7 flat 5 chord, a tritone away from the tonic. That's it. So what would the first chord for Stella be in the key of F? B minor 7 flat 5. B is a tritone away from F. That's it. What about the key of C? F sharp minor 7 flat 5. Now, do you know all of your minor 7 flat 5 chords? The minor 7 flat 5 is not an easy chord to play. It's the least known chord among most musicians. Remember, a minor 7 flat 5 is a minor 7 chord with a flat 5. It's also known as a half diminished chord. But in jazz, we don't talk about half diminished chords. We call them minor 7 flat 5 chords. So to make sure you know your minor 7 flat 5 chords really well, here's your next assignment. Play all the minor 7 flat 5 chords like this. Again, you need to nail these chords every time if you want to be a good jazz player. No excuses. Finally, let's look at the first two notes in the melody. In the key of B flat, the first two notes are B flat to A. So if I want to play Stella in any key, I just have to remember to start on the tonic and descend a half step. B flat is the 1 and A is the 7th. In the key of F, I would merely have to play F to E. And in the key of C, that's C to B. Now, when we talk about melody notes, we usually think of the interval that they create against a chord. When I say the melody in Stella starts with a descending half step from the 1 to the 7, I'm looking at these two notes against the 1 chord, B flat major 7. B flat is the root, the 1, and A is the 7th of B flat. But as we saw before, the first chord in the song is not a B flat major 7 chord. It's an E minor 7 flat 5. And if I look at the melody B flat to A from the perspective of E minor 7 flat 5, I would say B flat is the flat 5 and A is the 4th of our chord. You see the difference? B flat to A from the perspective of our key is 1 to 7. But over an E minor 7 flat 5 chord, it's flat 5 to 4. So basically, you can see these two notes from these two different perspectives. Now here's a really cool trick that you definitely need to start using. To memorize the first notes in any melody, always consider the two perspectives and then choose the easiest one for you to remember. For example, in Stella, it might be better to look at these first two notes from the perspective of the key. Let me show you. In the key of G major, Stella starts like this. How do I know? Well, because I'm thinking the melody starts in the tonic and moves down a half step. That's it. That's G to F sharp. And the first chord is a minor 7 flat 5 chord. That's a tritone away from our G. A C sharp minor 7 flat 5. So what's all this in the key of A flat major? A flat to G is the melody, and the first chord is a D minor 7 flat 5. So now you can start Stella in any key that you want. There's one more thing I'd like to take a mental picture of in this song. The song starts with a pickup note. And when I land on the minor 7 flat 5 chord, the melody is functioning as the 4th of that chord. See, A is the 4th of E minor 7 flat 5. But as jazz players, we never talk about the 4th of a chord if the chord is not a sus4 chord. We say it's the 11th. Any note that's not a chord tone is almost always referred to as a tension above the octave. And that's because we build chords by stacking thirds. So in a C7, we say D is a ninth, not the second. D is not a part of the C7 chord. It's not a chord tone. It's a tension that appears above the octave when we stack thirds to build a C7 chord. And A would be the 13th of C7, not the 6th. And F sharp would be the sharp 11, not the sharp 4. So basically what I'm saying to you here is I want you to see the A that's on top of this E minor 7 flat 5 chord as the 11th, not the 4th. The distinction we're making here is it is not a chord tone, it's a tension. And F sharp would be the 9th. And a C would be the flat 13th. So here's your final assignment for this lesson. Play the first notes and chord of Stella in all keys like this. And don't forget to think about these following concepts. I'm in the key of E flat. My first chord is going to be a minor 7 flat 5 chord, a tritone, away from E flat. So A minor 7 flat 5. And the melody starts on E flat and then descends a half step down to D. And D is the 11th of our minor 7 flat 5 chord. Remember how this 11th sounds on top of your minor 7 flat 5 chord too. Start building your jazz ear here as well. Don't play passively. Active listening is a huge part of what we're doing here. And I can't really emphasize this last point enough. All right, I know lots of new concepts in this lesson. Don't stress. Just play the assignments every day until your brain gets used to it. If you've never worked like this before, it's going to be weird at first, but you will feel your jazz skills getting better on every practice session. Trust me. When you've mastered today's assignments, come back for the next lesson. Thanks again for hanging out with us today. Go ahead and like, subscribe, share this with your friends, leave your comments and questions down below. All of those things really help out the channel. And if you're not a member yet, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and become one by clicking on that join button down below to have access to all the awesome supplemental material, like the PDF from today's video, which gives you all sorts of practice tools, and a link to today's video.